So I think what you'll find is one recurrent theme here is that we're all going to be professing a couple things. One of them is eating whole foods. And that takes you away from a lot of packaged processed foods. And you'll find that a recurrent theme in what we're doing. So does an apple a day really keep the doctor away? And we're going to talk about why we eat fruit and what are the benefits of certain fruit intakes and how they may affect people or protect us, different populations, and is there a superfruit? So, of course, number one, fruits are fun. They're naturally sweet, so we're talking about sugar, and we like things that taste sweet. We talked about how sweet's an acquired taste. Fruits are portable, and they're low in fat and calories. They're high in micronutrients and minerals, vitamins and minerals, and antioxidants. And it's hard to replace that in just a tablet, because a lot of people will say, well, I just take a vitamin. Well, I guess if you don't eat any fruit or vegetables at all, that would be reasonable. However, one thing we're going to talk, again, some of the videos we're going to talk about today, we mentioned fructose. And I've actually had some personal correspondence with both Dr. Lustig and Dr. Ludwig talking about the fructose in fruit. And it's metabolically different than a lot of the added fructoses because, number one, there have never been any ill effects documented in humans that ate food to the limits of their natural consumption. I mean, it's very hard to overeat plates and plates and plates of fruit. Number two, the fiber in fruit makes it more slowly digestible than, say, if you just drink a glass of juice. Fiber also helps to draw the sugar away from the intestine absorption. And then all of the phytochemicals and micronutrients help to protect the hepatic circulation when they're taking up all of this fructose. So there's a nice article, and we've each been challenged to provide for you 2 to 3 articles that we feel best represent our food group, our assigned food group. And this article will be one of the ones that we post so that you can read about that for yourself. So when I was trying to research, you can't even imagine thousands and thousands of articles about the benefits of fruit on our health. And so one of the ones I went to was this Harvard study that spanned 14 years, and it took healthy people, nurses and health professionals. Nearly 110,000 people were studied and watched, and they found what were the benefits of eating fruit. Number one, definitely cardiovascular benefits to eating fruit. And then if you ate 5 servings of fruit and vegetables per day, you could get a 30% reduction in your risk of cardiovascular disease. And the graph was, upward slope. So 2 is better than 3, is better than 4. However, it did seem to top out at around 5. Prospectively, did it help protect against cancer? The evidence there wasn't as good. There was some evidence about tomatoes, which contain lycopene, might help protect gentlemen against cancer of the prostate, especially the more aggressive forms. So, but that was the only thing in this study that seemed real evident. And then diabetes, yes, fruit is beneficial for people with diabetes. And they actually we found out that there are several fruits, and we'll see why in a minute, blueberries, grapes, and apples, that might be the better fruits for a diabetic to eat. Similarly, they also found out that those people that drank more juice instead of eating the fruit did develop more diabetes. So then I started looking for some specific data, and again, the literature is replete with all kinds of articles, some of which contradict each other, unfortunately. But I tried to take home some main messages. And one of them had to do with the dark colored fruits, the blue-black fruits, hence my blue dress, and blueberries specifically, and then something that's in blueberries called the anthocyanins. And lots of studies, again, demonstrating anti-inflammatory and antioxidative effects. They've given people sort of anthocyanin infusions, and saw what difference it made, and it may even increase HDL. So there are studies out there where you can find that there's some evidence specifically about the nutrients in fruit. Cardiovascular health, again, the more fruits you eat, up to 7 fruits and vegetables a day, the less risk of cardiovascular disease. I did find another reference. This was a very large European prospective study where they studied 500,000 people, and there the one evidence for fruit was the reduction of upper GI tract cancers. That was fruit and not vegetables. Colorectal cancers decreased with fruit and vegetables. Now, one of the thoughts there that I read about was that the cruciferous vegetables, by their high fiber intake, because they increase transit time through the gut, may limit the amount of time that toxins in our food actually make contact with the lining of the colon. So those are some of the ideas about why they think that that might be. But they didn't see a cancer reduction with some other kinds of cancers like biliary tract and pancreas and cervix. They couldn't find a connection there. Again, lots of positive literature is out there for how fruit helps with diabetes. We talked about satiety. So again, you can eat a handful of potato chips and not feel very full, and on the same length, you could eat a serving of watermelon and feel a little more full. So fruit, because of its fiber, maybe just helps you eat less, and all of the other antioxidants alleviate oxidative stress. With glucose, it also, they feel, protects endothelial cells in the lining. As you know, that's a dysfunction where plaque lays down, etc. And they recommend 200 grams of fruit a day. Now that sounds like a lot, but if you actually break it down, it's about 3 to 4 pieces of fruit, depending on what you're choosing. It even helps people with with metabolic syndrome, about the endothelial dysfunction. And then I even found an article about people that eat a lot of avocados will progress less than diabetes. So if you're looking out there for your specific fruit or one that you like, you can. I found medical articles for just about every fruit that I could think of. And we know that more fruits and vegetables are inversely associated with all-cause mortality too. So looking at some specific food groups, the easiest way to look at them is by their color. And we talked earlier about rainbow fruits, and you should have a rainbow of fruits and vegetables. And we're just going to break it down a little bit here. So red foods, broke them down into flavonoids, carotenoids, and then other ingredients in red foods. So the one thing about red foods that was different, and I mentioned earlier about tomatoes, lycopene, and prostate cancer. So red fruits and vegetables are the only ones that contain lycopene. And there is some evidence very specific about how this pigment functions as an antioxidant. One thing I read that was interesting was that cooked tomatoes, for example, allow the lycopene to be more available than eating them raw. So I know Dr. Michelle will talk a little bit about fruits and vegetables and cooking and raw, etc. But I thought this was one example where, you know, that pasta once a week and homemade pasta sauce is good for your heart. The orange foods have some flavonoids, and of course they're very high in the carotenoids and the vitamin A precursors. And again, people with, I thought this study was interesting. I said, I just got so into it, I was playing around. But here was a group of elderly people, and they measured their serum carotenoid levels. And if you had less carotenoid, less vitamin A, you actually moved less as an elderly person. And you think about what happens as you get older. You know, you lose your teeth, or you have dentures, and you lose weight, and your dentures don't fit right. And I noticed when my mother-in-law lived with me for a couple years, I was like a child. Mom, you have to eat your vegetables. You have to eat your fruit. They don't want to. It hurts. It's difficult. So you can imagine how it would be easy for the elderly to not have diets as rich in the carotenoids. Yellow foods are very similar to orange, carrying a lot of the same micronutrients and phytochemicals. Of course, very high in vitamin C, and I'm not going to reiterate all the benefits of vitamin C. Then we go into the green fruits and vegetables. And the one thing, there's two things that the green fruits and vegetables have that's a little different. One are the lutein and zeaxanthin. And those are substances specifically taken up by the cells in the macula. And studies have recorded that diets that are high in the green leafy vegetables that have these two substances may protect you against age-related macular degeneration. So I thought that was interesting. And then the other food group were the indoles and the organosulfates. And again, they are very high antioxidant capacity, and the green group is the only ones that have these. So again, eat the rainbow. You want to eat some green fruit every day. And then, of course, we all are aware of the greens with the vitamin K and all of our patients that are on Coumadin. Then there are the white-green foods and vegetables, and they have a lot of the same similar flavonoids and others. And here, one of the flavonoids that was different was the quercetin. And it's interesting because, onions look so innocent. They're white and they're thin and they're flimsy, and do they really add anything? Because I eat a lot of onions. And then I was so happy to see that the quercetin in the onions is a really great, very powerful antioxidant. And garlic, again, Mediterranean diet that Dr. Kuczela was talking about earlier. Garlic's a high proponent of that, and that's one of the few sources of something called allicin, which is also a very powerful antioxidant. So, some other things about Mediterranean diet that when you break them down and study them, make sense. And then lastly, the blue-purple foods, which are sort of like the Superman. And a couple things there, again, they're very high. They're the highest in that anthocyanins. And you noticed a lot of studies I mentioned earlier talked about blueberries and grapes. And we all know, of course, about red wine. In my MPH, I did an entire 30-page paper on red wine. It's good for your blood. Because I was drinking wine at the age of 5 and 6. Our parents would give us about 2 ounces once a week. And they would say, it's good for your blood. Why is that? Well, that's because of the anthocyanins and the these words are so hard for me. Resveratrol. And so again, these are found in the blue, dark colored fruits. Hence the dark red Merlot wine that I like to drink. One thing you have to be careful. I noticed somebody last week at work brought in this coconut. We went to the fruit market and at lunch, and I bought a quarter peck of Honeycrisp apples, which are my favorite, and I bought some peaches and some zucchini and some other fresh fruits. I think it was peppers. And then the person that was with me brought some cranberry nut bread. And when we got back to work, I said, I need to run out to the car to get one of my apples. I'm so hungry. Well, just eat that cranberry bread. That's got fruit in it. So, it's interesting. We've allowed ourselves to think that a slice of cranberry bread is a serving of fruit. And it's not. So you want to be mindful with your patients. It's much better to just eat the serving. And I could not find fresh cranberries. I make the best homemade cranberry sauce. And they're not in season yet. So I'll be mindful in the fall to have you guys taste how I cook my cranberries and eat them at home. So I was going to ask you guys to think about what might be your super fruit. For me, it's blueberries. you guys, there really is no one superfruit. We eat the rainbow. But I can eat this little whole thing for lunch sometimes. That's $1.29 or $1.99 at Aldi's, depending on what time you're buying them. But that's the same price as a pack of potato chips. And a lot of times I'll tell patients, what did you eat for lunch? And I'll say, I brought a peach, an apple, some blueberries, a pepper, a cucumber, and some chicken. They go, you gonna eat all that food? I go, yeah, because when you eat it all separate, it's all healthy for you. That's it on my fruit. We're gonna have fruit salad for lunch today, and then we can share some of these fruits as well.
So I think I'm next, right?
Yes.
All right. So thanks, Dr. Canarella. So my job is to talk about vegetables with you guys, and you know, fruits and vegetables always go together. And so I think Dr. Canarella and I have kind of done complementary lectures. So her focus was more the very academic, sort of looking at the studies of each of the compounds, which can be so overwhelming when you go to the literature and see how many studies there are. So thank you, because I think you spent many days reading all of these studies. I spent a day and felt like I didn't quite get to the bottom of all of it yet, because there's just so much out there and so much to be done. So my focus with vegetables, which always go hand in hand with the fruits, is to focus a little bit more on okay, I'm here with a patient, and how are we going to talk to patients about this? Where are they going to get their vegetables? How much are they going to cost? And what are we going to tell them to do with their vegetables? So just getting started with a family. Some of our families eat a fair number of fruits and veggies during the day, but there's another fair number of families who don't eat any at all. So sometimes where we're starting is, can we replace mac and cheese with anything else in the fruit or vegetable category? And just sometimes getting people started with having some vegetables on their plate each day is a big accomplishment. So families want to know where to go, where should they buy them? Should they go to the farmer's market if it's available to them? Can they get good stuff at the grocery store? You guys want to know which vegetables should we recommend? So we've got this whole rainbow of 100 different fruits and vegetables. Is one better than the other? And should people have them fresh, frozen, canned? How should they buy them? And we'll talk a little bit about how to prepare them. Should we cook them or not cook them? So I took these pictures a few days ago. So in August, what was fresh and local in our community were peppers, tomatoes, eggplant. They were the big things that were in large volume at the farmer's market. The nice thing about the farmer's market vegetables is they are fresh as can be. Picked yesterday at the peak of ripeness with the maximum number of nutrients that vegetable is going to have. By supporting the markets, we support our local farmers. There hasn't been transportation of these vegetables across the country, which affects their nutrition, as well as just adding to their carbon footprint. And you can get some of the vegetables there from organic growers. We talked a couple weeks ago when I was talking about pediatric nutrition with you. We talked about the supplemental nutrition assistance program, which was formerly food stamps, and the supplemental food for women, infants, and children, so SNAP and WIC. I left here that day. I went to Orr's Market to get some fruit, and they had this giant sign outside their farmer's market saying, "We accept EBT," which is the electronic bank transfer card that folks who receive this assistance will have. And it says, "Did you know you can use EBT cards for Pick Your Own?" So what an awesome thing to do. Fun for kids and get more for less, which I thought was great. So that's just right around the corner from us. So I think sometimes families feel like the produce at the farmers markets are perhaps more expensive and perhaps unavailable to them, but that is simply not true. So which vegetables should we recommend to people? Are there certain ones we should recommend over other ones? And what nutrition do they offer? So Dr. Canarella was talking about phytochemicals. So the phytochemicals are any nutrient in a fruit or vegetable that has nutritional benefit. So among the phytochemicals are antioxidants, and I thought this was a really nice illustration of, here is a list of a whole bunch of the phytochemicals that have antioxidant properties. And Dr. Canarella talked in detail about several of these. And here they are grouped by the color of fruit or vegetable that contains all these different antioxidants. And the point here is not to memorize which ones are in which place, but just to kind of reinforce this idea of all of these things are good for you, and if you're going to get some exposure to all of them, there's not just one vegetable or one fruit you're going to eat. You're going to eat a variety of different fruits and veggies. Here's another way to illustrate the same point. Actually, I showed this to Dr. Smith, and she said, "Ooh, can we hang this on the wall in our office and show this to families every day?" So they've just sort of color-coded each of the vitamins and associated it with fruits and vegetables around, again, illustrating that point of we should recommend for folks to eat a variety of veggies in order to get everything they need. Similarly, fiber, potassium, calcium, and iron are in different levels in different vegetables. And so, in my opinion, although people will say this one's a superfood or that one's a superfood, probably a variety is what we need. There are some other, people have done scoring systems of vegetables looking at the nutrient-dense quality of the vegetables versus the calories per mass. Kale always comes out on top of that one. The paint wore off my bumper sticker, but last year I had this great bumper sticker that said "Eat more kale" on the back of my car, sort of reinforcing that. But some people don't like kale, and kale is kind of scary for people who are making the change from macaroni and cheese to trying some vegetables. So we can't just go directly to kale for everybody, but it's one of my favorites. So which veggies should I eat? This is the question from your patients. So a variety of vegetables, a rainbow of colors. So I like to talk with families about just easy ways to add vegetables. So could you put some vegetables in your child's lunchbox? Could you take some carrots or some celery with you? It's pretty portable. Could you learn some new recipes? So kale salad, I have to say, everyone is really surprised how good it is. But can they learn a new recipe like that? Can they throw some more veggies in their spaghetti sauce? Could they just steam some broccoli? It's quick, it's easy, and sometimes suggesting some of those things very specifically to families makes it easier for them to embrace the idea. And as you go through the rest of the day today, cooking in the kitchen, and over the next few times in the kitchen, you guys will have sort of personal hands-on experience with some of this stuff to be able to say with conviction, all right, listen, these vegetables, they're actually not that hard to cook, and here's how you do it, and I've actually done it, and here's how it is. Some of you might already be big vegetable cookers, but if you're not, we're going to help you get comfortable with that. So what do you think? Fresh, raw, frozen, canned? Without hearing anything yet so far, what would your thoughts be about, would you recommend one over the other, which is more healthy, and which is the most economical? What do you think? Well, it depends. All right.
I think fresh may be the most healthy, but frozen may be more economical.
All right. Good. Okay, so we've got a vote for fresh is healthy, frozen might be more economical. Good. Okay. Any other thoughts?
Depends on the season.
Depends on the season.
And with canned, it probably depends if you do it yourself or if you buy canned at the store.
All right. True. Yes. So in terms of what's been added to it.
Because my dad makes jalapeno peppers and cans them for a while, so.
Nice. All right. Yeah. So if you've canned it yourself, you know exactly what's in it. If you're getting it from the store, it's harder to tell. Good. Any other thoughts there? Any other votes for something being healthier than something else? Well, I thought this was really interesting because I actually had not looked at the literature for this, so I went to the literature. And thinking about raw versus cooked. We'll come to the canned and the frozen. But let's just stop for a second at raw versus cooked. So boiling your vegetables will reduce the water-soluble vitamins, so the B vitamins and vitamin C. If you boil it, a lot of those will leach out into the water and you'll lose them. So if you steam or microwave or stir fry your veggies, you're going to preserve some of those water-soluble vitamins. Cooking actually increases some of the nutrients. So Dr. Canarella was mentioning lycopene, that if you cook a tomato, the lycopene becomes more available. Similarly, the beta-carotene in carrots increases with cooking. And I didn't quote a bunch of studies here because the studies I read were certainly a little bit conflicting. And lots of studies are ongoing, so it'll be interesting to keep kind of checking the literature to see what's going on. So bottom line, raw versus cooked. Well, I would say if you like your carrots cooked, eat them cooked. You're going to get a little bit more beta-carotene. If you like your carrots raw, eat them raw. You'll still get some beta-carotene, and it's better than macaroni and cheese. So whatever works for people, I think is fine, because there are benefits sometimes in both directions. So fresh versus frozen. So this is a very interesting idea. So, and there was this really nice study by a group in Scotland. It was sponsored by the British Department of Frozen Vegetables. That's not exactly their name, but it was pretty much the British Department of Frozen Vegetables. And I read their conclusion, which was that frozen vegetables are fabulous. But then I went and looked at all of their data, and it was a little bit less conclusive than they made their conclusion out to be. But what they found was, okay, so local vegetables where they've been picked at the height of ripeness, and they're going to be consumed within a few days, and they're truly fresh, have more nutrients than supermarket vegetables, which were probably picked before they were ripe, and then they were driven 1,000 miles halfway across the country to the grocery store where they have now sat for a few days before you get them. And perhaps they've used some artificial means to help ripen them along the way. The nutrient load in those vegetables is not as high as your truly fresh local vegetables. Frozen vegetables are picked in the field at the peak of their maturity and frozen on site. And the nutrients in frozen vegetables actually remain pretty well, not for every vegetable, but for many vegetables, their nutrients are retained while they are frozen, and actually provide a good alternative to fresh and local. Frozen vegetables, which are already washed and cut, remove the time-consuming part of preparing the vegetables. So for a busy family, they can be a good alternative. And again, these are small studies with ongoing research. So for example, the results for cauliflower were different from the results for green beans. But looking at them overall, with not all vegetables being exactly the same, there was a trend in favor of at least supporting the idea that frozen vegetables are not, as a group, a lot less nutrient dense than the grocery store vegetables. So fresh or frozen depends on the season, depends on convenience and availability. Canned vegetables. Again, so canned vegetables are picked from the field at the peak of ripeness and canned more or less on site. So they'll retain a lot of their nutrients, but they're usually canned with some kind of preservative, which is most often salt. So watching for added sodium is really important when we're using canned vegetables. So green beans, per half cup of drained, rinsed beans, you get about 200 milligrams of sodium. Certainly, you have more sodium if you don't drain the beans and you kind of cook them in their own salty water. But canned can be a good option, but definitely suggesting for families to rinse them, and if they can get the no salt added canned vegetables, those will be better. So per pound, I did a little cost analysis, and I was surprised. So, fresh grocery store green beans a couple days ago were $1.99 a pound. At the farmer's market, a little bit more expensive, $2.50 per pound. Frozen was actually the most expensive, $2.67 per pound. And I guess what you're getting for that is a lot of convenience of having the vegetables when you want them, and having them already washed, cut up, and almost prepared for you. And then canned was the least expensive at $1.98 a pound. And then I was satisfied with it just like that. I thought it was really nice. And then it occurred to me that I think sometimes families feel like the quick stuff that they can grab off the shelf, the mac and cheese and things, seem really inexpensive, and vegetables seem more expensive. So I went to see how much the Velveeta mac and cheese cost and then calculated it per pound. And that's actually $3 a pound, which is more than any of the green bean options. And really, if you think about how long it takes to steam some green beans versus the amount of time it takes to boil some water, cook some macaroni, and then mix some cheese in, green beans are actually going to be ready before the mac and cheese. So the beans are less expensive, they take less time, and they certainly pack better nutrition. All right. So many thanks to our local Food Lion for letting me go take lots of pictures. And Shepherdstown Farmers Market actually gave me a lot of those pictures as well.